Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can check out new episodes of the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. If you missed an episode or want to get more information about the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com. Season 1 of the TV version of Building the Future is now streaming online at buildingthefutureshow.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Brandon Naids, CEO and co-founder at Talent Simulations. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you on the show. We actually met a few months ago, and I actually got to try out your simulator and whatnot in person, and it was very cool. But maybe before we kind of get into exactly what you guys are doing, let's get to know you a little bit better and cover your background and kind of where you grew up.
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in Philadelphia. I lived in Connecticut for a few years and then moved back to Philadelphia. And I moved to Orlando to get involved with the theme park industry. So growing up, that's what I always knew I wanted to do. I loved roller coasters. I loved the amusement parks and always got season pass to my local Six Flags.
Sure.
So when it came time to pick schools, I picked the University of Central Florida. It's right in Orlando, right near all the big theme parks, and it'd be my way to get my foot in the door and really just get involved any way that I could.
Sure.
So that was 7 years ago now. So I made the move, packed up my bags, said goodbye to my friends and families, and moved on down south and haven't looked back since.
Sure. So what kind of got you fascinated about mechanical engineering growing up? Just based on your love of kind of theme parks and roller coasters and whatnot?
Exactly. So when I was looking for colleges and looking at, what I should pursue to get involved with roller coaster designing, I mean, mechanical engineering is right up there as one of the best fields of study. And math has always been one of my strong suits, so I knew going into it, it sounded like it was right up my alley. Mechanical was the way to go, is what could help me get my foot in the door and demonstrate, my capabilities to get involved in that industry. And that's really what pushed me to pursue that.
Sure. No, I think that's awesome. So you graduate, well, actually you got a master's degree, correct?
Yeah, I actually just wrapped that up a couple weeks ago.
Oh, congrats, man. That's awesome. So
thanks a lot.
I guess you got this degree. You ended up kind of starting your own or co-founding Talent Simulations. How did that kind of come about? Because you obviously started it while you were still in school.
Right. So my whole undergrad was an experience in its own, and it took me 5 years, like most engineers it does, and I never thought I wanted to start a business. So
okay.
It's a newfound passion, entrepreneurship, and it's been amazing, but I never thought that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in the theme park industry, but I wanted to work for a big manufacturer or a big amusement park. And I started working at Universal. I was a ride attendant. So I had some friends. I knew a lot of people that worked at Universal and Disney, to pay their way through college.
Sure.
It was right down the street from our school. And once you get your foot in the door, you can apply for internal opportunities outside of your department. So
Gotcha.
It's a good way. Like, they hire most people that apply and to be a ride attendant. So I got in there. I was an operator at the Hulk roller coaster. So
Nice.
It wasn't the most glamorous job, but, it was good exposure, and, it was fun for a coaster nerd like myself. And what's funny is it was about the time I started applying for internships, a lot of different places. So I think I was between my second and third year, and I got an opportunity to work at the Kennedy Space Center. So I actually
Very cool.
moved myself to a seasonal status. So I didn't have to work anymore, but I was still technically an employee at Universal. And I went and worked for United Space Line. So they were the main shuttle contractor. And if it was any other time period, most of the people that get that opportunity get hired on full-time upon graduation. But I was working on the transition and retirement contract, which was decommissioning the shuttles and getting them ready to be displayed in museums. So basically, I had an end date that was going to come about, in a few months. So while I was out there, although it was an amazing experience, I got to see some amazing things and learn some incredible technology. I applied internally to Universal for their engineering internship.
Oh, okay.
And I ended up leaving the Space Center a little earlier to go take the internship with Universal, because I knew that was more along my career path.
Sure.
Although, the space industry is picking up again and booming, so I definitely don't knock that. But I moved over there, and I ended up it was an amazing experience working at Universal. I mean, you work odd hours and crazy shifts, and you really get hands-on. And I knew it was something I wanted to continue doing, but when I graduated, they were on a hiring freeze.
Oh, okay.
So that was the time where I was like, what am I doing with my life?
Sure.
And so at that same time was when I was working on my senior design project. So basically the 2 semesters before you graduate, you work on a project. You design something and you build a prototype, and then you display it with all of the other seniors. And we came up with this idea to build a virtual reality flight simulator. We had about $1,500. We used parts from a junkyard and built it in the garage, but it was a good proof of concept. Not very reliable, but it demonstrated, the point we wanted to get across, and it was still just a school project, something cool that we could do to work on, our last couple semesters and get some cool experience. And that was the time when we presented it. We were graduating. I didn't have any job offers, although, I was playing by the rules all through college, get good grades, get some extracurriculars, get some internship opportunities, and then nothing squared away for me when I was getting ready to get my cap and gown. So we were getting some good recognition for our senior project and got some good mentors on board that summer that were introducing us to some of the local professionals in the simulation and training industry, which is also a huge industry right here in Orlando that not many people know about.
Okay, interesting.
And and it was basically those interviews that led us to pursuing a business venture. People are like, this is actually a pretty good idea. This could be, commercially viable business. And it's like, yeah, let's just go with it.
No, that's awesome. So I guess just for the listener, maybe let's cover exactly what you guys kind of built. And, obviously, like, you have a flight simulator and racing and that kind of thing. Do you maybe want to kind of cover exactly what you guys are kind of building, and you're using Oculus and whatnot, and kind of how everything ties together?
Of course, yeah. So originally our initial inspiration was the release of the Oculus Rift Development Kit 1, which was about 3 years ago now. And that's what inspired us to come up with this idea of a VR flight simulator.
Okay.
And we're like, we kind of used it as an excuse to buy an Oculus. Let's do this for the class so we can buy one.
I love it.
And that's the concept of what we do hasn't changed much. Really, the difference now is that we're not focusing on flight training as much, just because the market is a little less adaptive to new technology. They're not the early adopters.
Sure.
So we're focusing more on entertainment. And really what we do is we take a motion platform, a low-cost motion platform that it can be plugged into a wall outlet. You plug it USB to your computer. So it's not like a huge expensive one that a lot of motion simulators in the past have been.
Sure.
And then we take advantage of these VR headsets, which, provide you with the visuals. You have the whole cockpit, inside these headsets. So really you're reducing the footprint of the hardware with this new software that's allowing you to have 360-degree visuals. It's HD, it's 3D, and very realistic. And we're taking advantage of that, essentially.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, and like I said, I got to try the actual simulator when I was down in Florida and when we met up, and it's awesome. Like it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's sort of what we're capitalizing on. The exciting experiences, and it's even rewarding, a lot of the times for people that are scared of flying, or they can't fly anymore because, like, retired Air Force veterans you've had in our system, and it's the closest they can get to being in a fighter jet again. And
Sure.
People that have always wanted to get on a racetrack in their favorite race car. So that's the great part about it too, is our platform is so adaptable. So race cars, roller coasters, fighter jets, airplanes. Now we have space simulators, space combat simulators.
Really?
It's amazing what you can do with just essentially the software is the primary feature that allows us to adapt our hardware so easily.
Sure.
So it's exciting, and we're focusing mostly on entertainment right now. We're actually launching a full entertainment center in a bar here in Orlando in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, very
so
cool.
People are going to be able to come in. They're going to have several different virtual reality experiences. They can pay for these different experiences, and you can't really get that anywhere else at this time.
Sure. No, I think it's awesome. And just to clarify something for the listener, like the actual chair that you sit in like moves as well. So as you're kind of racing or you're, in flight, like the chair's moving around and kind of like, so it's basically like being in the car, right? Or whatever you're simulating.
Exactly. So we make this a motion-based, it's a motion platform, and basically what it does is we have a software that extracts physics data and turns it into acceleration forces. So it makes it very realistic to what you're seeing and synchronizing it to what you feel. And that works very well in the race car simulator, so you get a lot of the acceleration forces you get when you're pressing down on the pedal, when you're switching gears. Same in the airplane. It's a little bit smoother, but you're still, if you're turning left, you actually get pushed to the right because that's what happens like in real life.
Right.
And that's part of, that's extraction software gets bundled with our simulators, and it allows it to work with, any different applications.
Sure. So if I had something that I wanted to, use with your guys' technology, is that even possible? Like, do you have like a developer kit where people can actually, put their games or whatever into your simulator, or do they have to work with you,
Mm-hmm.
or do you guys kind of have to decide what you guys are going to release next?
No, so we actually provide the software development kit to our customers, and with anything built in any of the big game engines, we make it very simple. So in 10 minutes, you upload a script and you're good to go. And we've actually had a couple developers that have had games already that they built without motion in mind.
Okay.
And they put it in there just to see. We had this local guy, he made a deep sea dive pod. So it's basically like a submarine game.
That's awesome.
And it's stunning visuals that he did on this. And yeah, we implemented it right in there, lickety split, and now we have a submarine simulator.
That's very cool. So are you guys just supporting the Oculus, or are you going to move to other headsets, or kind of how does that work?
So really, the visual system is independent of our simulator. So really, we're specializing in the Oculus because it's more for seated experiences, but we've had a customer use it with the HTC Vive.
Right.
It works just as well. And then the one thing we really aren't doing is mobile VR. So all of our simulations are PC-based, mostly because our mission is to really be realistic and immersive. And although the quality on mobile VR headsets is still really good, it's not to the point of what a PC can run, the graphics quality. So we're mostly staying with these PC-based. So the Oculus and the Vive are the big ones right now. And then there's, the Star VR, which no one knows when it's going to come out, but it's going to be 4K resolution and 210 degrees field of view. So that's going to be the next level up, and will probably be adapted more by the training industry because of the higher quality.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, we're almost at the beginning of the whole kind of VR space, right? And I know Google at I/O just launched Android VR, and I'm sure that maybe some point you will support kind of these other things that are still kind of coming, right? So who knows, right? And now that Oculus is backed by Facebook and a bunch of other, you guys almost have this thing like very, very early on in the VR space, right? So it's almost like the possibilities are endless, and the fact that you guys are so kind of early on to the whole space, I think is awesome and makes it kind of really exciting.
It is, and you just have to be really flexible. No one really knows where it's going to go, so you just got to stay up to date with all the technology advancements and, kind of pivot your business model to coincide with what people want.
Sure. So I'm curious then, I buy a chair from you guys, and then obviously I have to go buy like an Oculus myself, correct?
Yeah, so we can't be a licensed reseller as of the moment.
Right.
What we've been trying to do is actually for people that buy some of our simulators aren't interested in virtual reality, we can give you guys one. So we've been gifting some VR headsets, here you go. But, we're not the only add-ons to VR, and pretty much everyone is saying you need to buy an Oculus separately, especially because they're so hard to get your hands on. Right now, pre-orders are back to August now.
Right.
So we're catching up with it, but, it's hopefully one day, we'll be able to actually, sell it as a full bundle.
Sure.
But it's tricky just because it is such a young industry.
Sure. And then you guys kind of offer different simulators. So it looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that I can basically buy the parts. Well, I buy almost like the base chair and then decide, if I want one for flight or racing. And then if I, if I buy one, I could probably buy the parts for the other one later on if I choose to. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, we have add-ons that you can buy whenever, and if you want to switch out what sort of simulation you're doing.
Sure. So obviously you're going after kind of the entertainment market right now, and you mentioned kind of eventually maybe going back into the training space. I'm curious to know kind of what other applications have you used the simulator in, and where do you think it will potentially go?
It's amazing at the amount of research that's going into these headsets now, and even the medical industry, surgeons, things like that are taking advantage of these headsets.
Sure.
And it's pretty incredible. So, like I said, our very first prototype was a flight simulator, and we really wanted to bridge the gap between the computer simulators where you're just looking at a monitor and the really large, expensive ones that, not every flight school can afford.
Right.
So, which still aren't very realistic. So with virtual reality, it really gets you immersed. If you feel like you're there, so you can overcome anxiety, get familiar with your situations and scenarios, but actually take it more seriously than you would staring at a computer screen. So not only with flight training, which I know is going to be incredible because you feel like you're flying. You feel like you're there, but also with young driver training. So we just supported a driver training software, and I rear-ended somebody in it and it got me nervous. I was there. I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. I mean, I will definitely leave here driving safer than when I got here today after experiencing that.
Interesting. Wow, that I never thought of it like that. But that you're right, because the chair would kind of bounce you around a bit, right?
It does. There was that full impact,
Sure.
and you have the headset on, which it's really hard to describe virtual reality to someone that hasn't used one of the newer generations, because it's been around for decades, and it's tried to make an impact in the 90s, but the technology wasn't there. But the level that it's at these days is incredible. But now I actually got my parents really interested in this stuff now. So my dad just got my mom a Gear VR for Mother's Day.
Really?
To work with her Samsung phone.
Wow.
So they're using it as therapy for relaxation and going on the beach. There's so many different 360 videos that just if you can't get away yet right now, put a headset on and put some music and pretend like you're at the beach, or you can go on safari rides, and it's amazing the amount of stuff there is to just give you a virtual vacation.
No, you're totally right, and you're right that the new headsets are pretty much like you're there, right? And it's weird because it takes a few minutes to get used to, because if you're connected to the computer and you look down to go to your keyboard or something, obviously you can't see your keyboard, right? So because you can't see outside of the world that you're in, and it feels very real. And kind of back to your car driving thing, it feels like you actually hit somebody if you hit somebody in VR, which is, it's weird to wrap your head around it if you've never actually experienced it, but it's very, very cool. And like you just mentioned, that we're at the beginning of this, and you're right that you could basically go on virtual holidays, and I know Google is doing stuff with Street View and whatnot, so it's going to be wild to see what developers come up with, and tying that stuff into your simulator would be really cool. And if you could almost race the world through Google Street View, and then use your simulator and a VR headset, you could basically drive the cities of the world, right? And that'd be wild.
Exactly, and we're heavily involved with the military industry as well, being right here in Central Florida. Our chief advisor is a retired brigadier general, and is still very active in the industry here. And it's amazing the amount of requests for proposals they're coming out with now that involve this technology. So virtual reality and augmented reality.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's a lot of positive benefits as well.
Sure. So I'm curious then, did you guys raise a bunch of money, or are you self-funded, a little bit of both, or how did you guys kind of get this started financially?
We're actually all self-funded. So it's what ended up happening once I graduated, and we picked up our chief advisor right away.
Okay.
And when he was introducing us to people, we actually met with somebody that got awarded a grant through our university from the National Science Foundation, and got accepted into this program. We received, it was only $3,000, but it was a 10-week program where we went out and interviewed people in our industry to see if this was even a business, a potential business. And then because we got accepted into that, that's when I decided to go to grad school. And I was like, okay, well, we'll continue going with this. One of our other advisors is the professor there that got me work in one of the labs, which was a cool 3D printing, laser cutting, prototyping lab.
Very cool.
And I was working there part-time to meet ends meet while we were still pursuing this. And then while I was a student there, I was also able to participate in their business competitions. Yeah, so we took first place in a couple of business competitions and won about $16,000 in cash, as well as a bunch of free resources from local companies. So we got free legal, accounting services,
Awesome.
marketing services, and that really got us established. So at that point in time, we kind of knew we were going to keep going with this. And
Sure.
so we raised a lot of free money that way, and then there's 5 of us co-founders, and
Okay.
now we're down to 2.
I got you.
So basically, in early stages, we can't really afford to pay ourselves, and the 3 other guys they got jobs and started working full time, but it just worked out well where me and my other co-founder Jordan just continue pursuing this, and the other guys, if they want to come back on board when we can support them, it's definitely open. But as of right now, with the business competitions, and then me and Jordan have both put in, not our entire life savings, but, pretty close to it.
Sure.
But we've really utilized a lot of the local university and Orlando resources to fund ourselves, and they're really attempting to put in an efficient ecosystem here for startups like us. And, starting from the university level to getting a Series A round when you need it, and all the way up to continue, your funding rounds. And we've been lucky to not have had to take on investment yet. We are looking into different funding opportunities soon, but we don't necessarily need it since we are making sales now and we're able to support ourselves. But of course, at some point you need some financing to expand. So
Sure.
It's something to be prepared for.
No, I think that's awesome. And I think that's kind of inspirational for people, because you're building a hardware software platform, and you basically did it, like you basically bootstrapped it, right? And you didn't need millions of dollars to launch a simulator. And if people go to your website, like, you guys are supporting tons of different games already on your own. You have a SDK for developers with Unity and Unreal and a couple of others. And so you guys are supporting and have done a lot with very little amount of money spent, right? Like you mentioned, you won some money, and you kind of went through these programs, and you got a bunch of free stuff through. But I guess the point I'm trying to stress is that there's ways to do it without going and saying, I need $1 million or $10 million or whatever, right? That you guys are basically doing this, and you're building hardware and software on a small amount of money to get going and start generating revenue and money. And I think that's actually really impressive.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It really is unique. It's the road less traveled, and it comes down to knowing what is available to you. And the university, we're one of their star trials, because they are putting a lot of money into these resources, and they like to demonstrate that, hey, look, we're investing this money and it's working.
Sure.
And I think we owe a lot to them. We owe a lot to the community in Orlando as well. With all the different, we have tech meetups on a monthly basis that we like to go to, and it really opens up your network and other opportunities that you might not have known. So we have a lot of different accelerators here in town now with different grant fundings, a lot of co-working spaces. So it's pretty incredible that you really rely on other entrepreneurs more than you would think. So you can't do it yourself, and it's really helpful to have that community.
Sure. No, I think that's awesome. Do you kind of have any other advice for people out there, that you're like, oh man, I really wish I would have known that or thought of this kind of early on when you were doing either anything on the hardware or software side, or both?
Well, really, it's a lot of trial and error. And,
okay.
My mechanical background has been really great in starting the company, but now I've learned that I don't think I was meant to ever be an engineer. Sitting behind a desk, modeling and coding all day really isn't for me. I like to be out and about, meeting people, going on travel, and and doing different events. So I think really for me, I wish I found that out during my undergrad.
Okay.
That I would love to be a business owner. And, I think it really takes a lot. You got to find out what you like to do and really determine what the best path is. But it really comes down to going out of your comfort zone and finding those opportunities and seeing what you like and what you don't like. It's just as important.
Sure. No, I think that's really good advice. And I think the thing that you touched on, I think, is probably maybe even the most important, at least in my opinion, is almost like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Right? Because I think a lot of people are too scared.
Really. I agree. And I see a lot of people not grow to their full potential because they have lived in the same city their whole lives, or they've been too scared to go away or too scared to try something new. And it was the dean of our College of Business who I've got acquainted with during my master's, since I was doing all their business competitions. And
sure.
He had a speech where he basically said, if you're comfortable, you're doing it wrong.
Fair.
Because every day he's like, I challenge you to do something that takes you out of your comfort zone every day, because if you're not doing it right. You're not growing as a person. That's really how you grow and can find those other opportunities to do what you love.
Sure. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. We're kind of running out of time, so do you maybe want to kind of give a quick overview again, just if anybody's tuning in a little bit later into the show, exactly what you guys are doing, and then maybe kind of cover how developers can get involved? Does that sound good?
Sure. Yeah. So with Talent Simulations, we manufacture immersive and affordable virtual reality motion simulators. And we do different training and entertainment applications. So we've sold our motion simulators to technical institutes, military contractors, entertainment centers, bars, museums. So we have a wide range of customers, and we really cater to a lot of different needs, whether it's race cars, roller coasters, fighter jets and airplanes, and space combat simulators. So it's exciting technology. We're taking advantage of the new virtual reality headsets and integrating them in as many ways as we can. So we're really trying to be the VR experts, and we want to be the guys that the community comes to help with their new projects with these experiences.
Sure. No, that's awesome. And then if you're a developer, do you want to maybe talk quickly about what you guys do for developers again?
Yeah, so we actually aren't software developers ourselves. So we work with content creators to create these experiences for us. So we have a software development kit to add physics data to create motion support with our simulators. Anything that is designed in the Unreal Engine, Unity, or CryEngine, which are the three big gaming engines, we provide the plugins that you easily can import to create the motion support.
Sure.
And then, so any vehicle-based simulations that you might already have or are interested in doing, we're actually beginning to open up several different entertainment centers with a couple of our partners, and we love to get them out there for people to use. So we're actually creating a menu that changes on a monthly basis of different experiences. So anyone that goes into these centers will have something new every month. So that means we're going to need a lot of different content. So different software developers out there, we'd love to work with you and see what we can get into these entertainment centers.
Sure, man. Well, great, Brandon. Let's kind of close the show with mentioning where people can kind of get more information and find you guys online.
So www.talentsimulations.com. That has information on our motion platforms, the different uses of them. We're also Twitter handle at TalonSim, so that's TalonSim, and we're also Twitter, Instagram. We got some lots of different YouTube videos of showing our simulators at different events. So social media is definitely a great outlet these days and to communicate and collaborate. So you can definitely get a hold of us on there. And different events. So we're always at different conferences and trade shows and doing events. So we're working on getting our sales outside of the Southeast, and we have a few coming to the West Coast. So just follow us and see our updates and see where you can try one of our simulators.
Perfect, Brandon. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you and kind of seeing where you guys take this thing, because so far it's awesome, and it really can only get better, as people add more and more games and other kind of motion simulating kind of experiences, and you already have lots of games and kind of people using this thing, so it's only going to grow, and I look forward to kind of watching that.
Yeah, look forward to getting together again too, Kevin. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, sounds good, man. All right, we'll talk soon. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks again.
Yeah. Bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check them out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.